slowly pushing open his half-closed door. Roy, Kennedy's oldest brother, was the first of the group, and he just stood there in the doorway, frowning for a moment, trying to take in what he was seeing.
Yeah, I'm actually just heading out. Speak to you later.
13th of August 2016, and Kennedy, a young man in London, left his family home and made his way to an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. The next morning, as he woke, he couldn't help but feel off. He felt unwell, and on top of that, his throat became really sore. He wasn't too concerned, as he thought it might be a bug or something that he caught the night before at the Chinese buffet. But after a few days, Kennedy went to see a doctor, as this didn't feel like a basic sore throat. He told the doctor it felt like something was crawling round inside his throat. But after tests, and Kennedy being poked and prodded, the doctor couldn't find anything wrong. This was not what Kennedy wanted to hear. But the doctor said, "I'm sorry, but there isn't much I can do. But if things get any worse, come back and see me right away." Kennedy went back home to the 1.3 million North London family house, which he shared with his mum and dad, Kenneth and Josephine, and his 5 brothers, Roy, Harry, Colin, Samuel and Daniel, respectively. And over the next few days, the family noticed that Kennedy was starting to act strange. He had uncontrollable mood swings, getting extremely aggressive at the smallest issue. But as the days went by, Kennedy still had a sore throat. But his breathing became difficult, and he was telling his family he had pains in his stomach. Days went by, things were getting worse for Kennedy. He was struggling at work, and then he started missing days completely. Luckily, his job was at Swirsky Global Limited, a company he created with his brother Harry and his mother Josephine. They both told him it was fine for him to have time away from the company and to rest, as the family were becoming increasingly worried for him. Kennedy had now stopped eating and was starting to show severe weight loss. His family pleaded with Kennedy to go to the hospital or see a doctor, but he simply refused. One evening, while Kennedy's family was downstairs watching TV, they heard a bang come from upstairs above them. They looked at each other. The only person who was not there was Kennedy. They called upstairs to him, but there was no response. One of Kennedy's brothers walked to the bottom of the stairs and called up. Again, there was no response. Together, Kennedy's siblings walked up the stairs and walked over to his room, slowly pushing open his half-closed door. Roy, Kennedy's oldest brother, was the first of the group, and he just stood there in the doorway, frowning for a moment, trying to take in what he was seeing. The other brothers were still behind Roy, and they were also trying to look into the room to see what was going on. In a chair in the corner of the room sat Kennedy, hunched over, almost folded in half, whispering over and over as though he was in an intense argument with himself. But the thing that scared the brothers the most was there was 2 different voices coming from Kennedy. This went on for a week, and on the 19th of August 2016, Kennedy's brothers found him in bed, complaining that a seed had been planted in his stomach, and that it was making him hear voices. But then, things got worse. He would start breaking things, screaming and swearing at his family members. His family was almost at breaking point. Roy and his father were now convinced the problem with Kennedy was sleep deprivation. But Kennedy flatly refused to seek any medical help, as he was convinced He had a snake living inside him, and he could feel it moving around. And it would kill him if anyone attempted to remove the snake. The family decided they needed to keep a watch over Kennedy, and he must stay in the house. A few nights go by, and one of Kennedy's older brothers finds him standing in the hallway in just his boxers. He was in a trance-like state. His eyes were wide, staring unfocused. He had both hands down the front of his boxers, and he was muttering to himself about the mark of the beast and asking God to forgive him, and that he must cut off his own penis. Then, Kennedy went to attack his mother Josephine, but realising the danger, she ran to her room, closing the door behind her and barricading herself inside, as Kennedy tried over and over to kick the door in. And then Kennedy was restrained by his brothers, but as his father helped to take him back to his room, Kennedy bit him on the arm. This was the final straw. The family knew something must be done. So, they did what they thought was best. As dedicated Christian members of the Jesus Sanctuary Ministries in London, Kennedy's mother, known as Sister Jo to the members of the church, reached out for help. And immediately the church sent Father Pete, Brother Amika, and a volunteer named Andrew to go and pray for Kennedy. 10:59 p.m. that evening, and Kennedy was lying on his back on the sofa downstairs. He was texting a friend and playing on his phone. He paused for a moment as he moved to try and make himself more comfortable. His stomach and throat were still in pain, but he was also so exhausted. Then, the doorbell rang. Kennedy looked over and saw his brother Colin going to answer the door. He watched as he led 3 men into the room. Kennedy recognised the men from church. The 3 men stood around him. They said hello. Kennedy, still lay on his back on the sofa, awkwardly said hello back, realising how strange this was. The family joined the men, and they all began to pray for Kennedy and asking the Lord to heal him and watch over him. But as this went on, Kennedy began to sweat. It was clear that he now had a fever. Kennedy's family now became convinced he had a demon living inside him, and he was possessed. Kenneth, Kennedy's father, decided he now had to take control of the situation, and Kennedy must be restrained, and constant prayer was needed to exorcise the demons, as the family firmly believed that this was now the only way to heal and save Kennedy. 26-year-old Kennedy was dragged screaming and growling to his bedroom, and he was pinned down to his bed by his 5 brothers. Kennedy's father then used cable ties, rope, and a pair of handcuffs to restrain Kennedy in place. For 3 days, Kennedy was strapped to the bed, with his family taking it in turns to keep a watch over him 24 hours a day, denying Kennedy food and water. Kennedy's breathing became weaker, and he became delirious. On the morning of the 22nd of August, as the family gathered round Kennedy to pray, Kennedy tried to bite his own wrist. His brothers pinned him down again, but Kennedy started to have a seizure. The family realised they needed help, and at 9 a.m, Henry, Kennedy's brother, phoned for an ambulance, telling the operator his brother was complaining of dehydration, but was cold to the touch. As police and paramedics entered the room, they saw Kennedy was still tied to the bed and unresponsive. His family was standing round him chanting and praying, attempting to resurrect Kennedy. The paramedics cut him free and worked to save him, as the family carried on chanting. But sadly, Kennedy was pronounced dead at 10:17 a.m. When Kennedy's body was taken, an autopsy was performed, which showed he was restrained. He had over 60 injuries all over his body, including a bite mark. and the 26-year-old had died of a heart attack. The police arrested all 7 members of Kennedy's family on the charge of manslaughter and false imprisonment. In February 2019, the trial went to court, and after the paramedics gave their evidence, the police informed the jury that when they searched the property and the surrounding gardens, they found a bag which contained the handcuffs and 379 cable ties. When Roy took the stand, Kennedy's brother, he would later admit to trying to hide the bag in the neighbour's garden. He said the only reason he hid the bag was because he didn't know if civilians were allowed to own handcuffs. In the house, they found a book on demonic possessions and exorcisms. They also found recordings of Kennedy during the exorcism that they were going to upload onto the church's YouTube page. Kennedy's mother defended the use of the restraints, saying it was for his protection and the family's. And the police also found a note in the mother's bedroom of how to perform a spell and/or ritual to deal with the possession. The prosecutor, Tom Little QC, had previously told the court that Kennedy died because his own family had decided that because he'd become and remained unwell that he should be restrained. Whether this is some form of exorcism will be a matter for you in due course, Mr. Little said. In short, the Ife family took the law into their own hands. The BBC reported at the time that the family had set about attempting to cure Kennedy through restraint and prayer over the 3 days. Colin, Kennedy's brother, told police it's clear that the thing was in him. We believed it was a demon because it was not natural. It was clearly trying to kill him. We had to restrain him for himself, and it was clear that if we didn't restrain him, he could have tried to harm people in our family. Kenneth, Kennedy's father, told jurors that he ordered his sons to take shifts and to use overwhelming force to restrain Kennedy. But he denied that any association with cults, occults, and secret societies played any part in the death. After a 4-day jury deliberation, all 7 family members were cleared of all charges on March the 14th, 2019. Well, that's the end of that story, but it might be important to say that it's noted members of the jury were seen nodding to the family and putting their hands together to pray when the family came in for the verdict. I don't know if there's some bias there or it's for you to decide, but I don't know how you feel about this story. I feel it's strange that they didn't push for his medical well-being. They're clearly educated people and they've got the money to pay for private treatments. So it feels more like they chose this outcome. I'm all for people believing in what they want, but surely they could see the sun fading in front of them. And over the days he was tied to that bed, I would have thought his family would override saving him spiritually and save him medically instead. I find this a sad story, really, and a needless death. But do you think there was more to this story that hasn't been reported? Do you think they got away with murder? Or do you think justice won out? Do you believe in exorcisms? Are they necessary in the modern world? I am interested, so please let me know in the comments below. Thank you for listening. Take care.